Now, the final piece tonight will elicit big reactions and overreactions in some cases. But I said on the very first show, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. But I ask, while it's being said, I ask all to listen to it in full, ponder on it, and then decide before jumping to conclusions, as it will trigger some. I get that. But this is why it needs to be addressed. And it's not based on individual cases, but on an overview aspect. The impact of the feminism movement is what this is about. Led by Germaine Greer and others, was supposed to give women equal rights, pay and value, or so we were all led to believe. A bit like ending slavery for blacks, really. They just enslaved us all, and the blacks stayed the same. And because they were the same as the other colours, they, or we, never noticed it until it was all too late. Now, there were several reasons why this movement was set up and forced onto a gullible public. Elites thought it would be a novel idea to collect taxes from women as well as men, pushing them into the job market. Remember, when it started, the job market was predominantly male. But they knew females would largely also accept lower wages, as back then a female working was classed by and large as a supplemental wage due to the husband in general being the main breadwinner, as it was called back then. So now they had two plans in place: collect taxes off females, who represented 51% of the population in a largely male-dominated work environment, and lower the wages to boot. But as I've said earlier, the cabal rarely do things with one or two purposes. It's more often 3 or 4 or more different purposes, all carefully strategized out and compartmentalized so people wouldn't get the hidden purposes and expose it. So what were the hidden agendas of the feminist movement that eventually revealed themselves down the years and led to Germaine Greer, the main face of the feminist movement, to state she deeply regretted ever putting her name and face to this movement? Put pure and simple, the family breakdown. That's what it was all about. The transgender programme is a full-on repeat of the feminist movement, except they, like the women 40 years ago, will only realise they've been played for fools in the exact same way further down the line. It's a programme. Mothers and fathers both working, and people thought at the time it would be great. With extra income we can buy a new car, go on more vacations, give the kids more, have a better lifestyle for all the family. But it never turned out that way, did it? Despite two parents working, you now find you have less now than you did when just the man traditionally worked for all of the family. How can that be? How does that all work out? And why do we keep falling for their stupid programs? This is what we have to correct going forward by using critical thinking skills in mass numbers again. The reality is the system has never been in support of any group of people in history, never mind women, blacks, Hispanics, natives, or gay, lesbian, or transgender. They're not interested in anybody. They use the so-called minorities to drive their policies, not ours. Except the impact of the feminism movement has been, in my opinion, the most far-reaching and damaging ever. So women went to work, and in kicked two major problems. The comparative mindset, where women compare their husbands, lifestyles, sex life and various other comparisons, which leads to envy and demanding more from their partners, which largely they were more than happy with before mixing in the workplace, that is. And then the increase in females having extramarital affairs went on a massive upcurve that has never subsided since. Divorce rates have soared since that movement come in, as women comparing lifestyles felt somehow that they were missing out on life. The reality is they weren't. as most women were lying under their mask of illusion, that somehow that they had more than everybody else. The reality was they didn't. Their mask covered up their illusionary lifestyles. But once in comparative mindset, what is fake and what is real becomes a murky fog, or more apt, a smoky mirror. As time went by and this hideous program escalated beyond all control, including for women, the effect on men became devastating. No longer the protector and the provider, which was the traditional role, but they became rendered as instantly replaceable by a pack-like mentality devoid of nurturing, care, love and compassion, and replaced far too often by women more interested in how much the man earns, and that then decides on whether they sleep or live with them. With falling male wages, a direct consequence of the female low wage, something had to give. What did give was males were rendered mute, weaker, subservient, nervous, terrified, and a loss of warrior status, which is exactly how they want it now, this day. Programs are always done ahead of time. They wanted men when the final battle of the dark and the light is underway in that condition. Throw in genetic engineering via the original chemtrails, which lowered men's testosterone and increased women's, and you have a recipe for disaster. What gave for women was they lost their own identity in their drive for girl power and became bullish, dismissive, insensitive, ever more demanding, and service to self. Remember, this is an overview and does not apply to all individuals. Take one look at Match.com or some other dating site. The point is, why are so many people single and are reduced to having to go onto a computer to meet people these days? Is lost on many. It's almost a glorified prostitution, is it not? Selling yourself to the highest bidder. What happened to meeting up at venues, bars and clubs and the traditional meeting up places? All face to face. What happened was girls went out in packs, and if any male approached, were treated to a pack mentality of abuse and ridicule, and all the girls go along with it to fit in, the herd mentality, all passing instant judgment without getting to really know the guy. But is it not the case there's always one or two in that pack who would have liked to chat to some of the guys who approached? But they all join in with abuse and ridicule as they feel they have to fit in. That is sad behaviour and damaging to all who participate. You can go and witness what I've just described in any bar. Do your own research. The reason why is men nowadays are in general terrified of women, as they see women as being more money oriented than love based, and they worry if you go out with a woman they will take everything they have earned off them. This is the way men really think now. Is that the way it should be? Clearly not, but it has happened to too many to argue otherwise. Women know the courts protect them, and the kids is the reason why. And you want to know the real reason why the bulk of the money goes to the woman in a court settlement? Because the system knows women will spend it faster, is why. This is why 81% of all expenditures in shops is done by females. You see, it's all a marketing game. That's all it is. Total marketing ploy. So check out the profiles on Match and see for yourself the demands of females, where they dismiss roughly 90% plus of men with their profile requests alone. must earn 100,000 plus per year, must have been to college or university, no tattoos, no divorcees, no children at home, non-drinking, non-smoking or non-drugs, must be between this and that age. I want a sugar daddy, really. And for the sad majority of them, these people are largely, are just not appealing to the eye to most men. These are mainly women who got left dancing on their own at the end of the prom or the nightclub. They just aren't that appealing. And yet they make so many demands and they wonder why they're still on their own. Newsflash for those people. Quit with your demands and conditions, because love is not based on how much someone earns. That is the definition of shallow. You ask for shallow, you get it. But then it becomes so shallow, it runs dry. For many of you, your thinking and morals have ran dry. So a man who buys a ring for $100 because he's living to his means and that's all he can afford is not as good as the fool who pays $3,000 and goes into debt. He's just a cheapskate, some will cry. No, you have lost your own sense of identity and what is real value. To 99% of people, a $100 ring looks no different to a $10,000 ring. It's a piece of metal and something that resembles a piece of glass. But it's called a diamond. And they all must have the biggest one to show off to their friends. But it's not showing off, is it? It's rubbing people's nose in it. And I'm sorry, but the overview sees more than the ones immersed in it. It always does. You're not showing the ring to impress people. You're showing them to rub people's noses in it because they haven't got it. It's the same when people buy new cars, new houses. The comparative mindset kicks in, the envy. Women complain now, where is the chivalry of men? The answer is it was lost in a tidal wave of service to self, of what can I get out of him, and has left men terrified of committing, always on edge, as too easily they get dumped or replaced in a blink of an eye. The worst thing for men is they can't admit their real feelings to other men, as it's perceived as being weak. Actually, it's a strength. And yet this programme has left many men broken externally and, more importantly, internally, operating like a shadow version of themselves. And you think that is bad enough. And yet I've left out the biggest impact of this programme, and what really is the most important. The impact divorce has. Parents away in work all the time. Loss of love and nurturing. The sight of overstretched parents' lifestyles leading to verbal and violent squabbles in the home. And people wonder why so many children appear to be almost feral-like. The loss of at least one parent always being there for them was stripped away by this programme. It is to the children where the most damage has occurred. Ask why so many children are now riddled with drugs, alcohol addictions, getting into trouble with the law, why so many are psychologically unbalanced, why so many attend a psychologist, why so many flunk or fail school, why so many avoid their parents and hide in their room, why so many won't attend family parties, or if they have a birthday or other events, parents are not wanted there, and why so many are dependent on the state. It all goes back to that one movement in the late 60s, early 70s, and we all fell for it. I'm not for 1 minute saying men are perfect by any means. Some have done some awful things to women over the years. So many women in the past who wrongly tolerated the abuse of the husband or partner to save the children and the family. Saving the children and preserving the family was a key role for women of the past. But sadly, for too many now, it's about getting out what they want in life and stuff the man, and in ever-increasing numbers, stuff the children as well. This is not the way we should be or act. So the big question remains to all women: is this really how you all wanted it to turn out? Do you really realise how much of the essence of being a woman has been stripped away? Do you really like that hollow feeling inside your heart that yearns for real love? Do you want real love? Or is love based on how much he earns? Do you really care as much for your children as your ancestors did? The truthful answers to those 5 questions determines our future path. I ask all to please ponder deeply on those 5 questions in your own time. It will stimulate a reaction in some, I do get that. It was in part written to stimulate reaction. As for too long, this problem has been ignored. And whilst it is ignored, it will always remain a problem. And to the females demanding $100,000 a year plus earnings on Match.com, you guys will stay single for the rest of your lives. So I'll repeat again, this was not an attack piece on females, because I'm more than aware of the poor behaviour of men in relationships. But this was a deliberate programme of divide and conquer, not only between male and female, but the family and their children's lives also. Recognising the problem is the first start to correcting it, so we can all learn to love and care in a better way in the future. And perhaps one day love will walk in all our doors. I hope you've enjoyed this show. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. We'll have more details whether I do Q&A tomorrow or Saturday. Bye for now.